So good morning, Gary. How things this morning? How was your weekend?
Hi, not too bad. Good morning to you. Good morning to all your many viewers.
Nice one.
Happy New Year to you. First time I'm hearing from you for the year.
Oh yes. All the best in 2024 is the best I could say with hope. Because the way the year started off, I think we recorded 23 murders already in the first 15 days.
Yeah, but don't put hope in this. You're talking about railings and all that. We're not talking about hope. All right. Let's leave hope out to this one.
Let me leave that out. All right, no problem. So here was the thing. Before we get to the nitty-gritty of these anti-crime conversations that will take place, right? Look, you were there for 3 years, all right? There are certain things that I'm seeing taking place in the country right now that I could bet my bottom dollar, and a lot of people will agree with me, that they do not believe these things would have been happening if Gary Griffith was still commissioner of police. I'll give you an example now. A man was shot in the car park of the Long Circular Mall just last week, right? So here's my thing, and I'm trying to figure this out. When you drive out along Circular Mall and you go left, that is Mounted Branch. You go right, you head to St. James Police Station. Right opposite Long Circular Mall is a big building. I think Homicide is stationed there. That is a national security building. I think police station there. You have the Marval Police Station, St. Clair Police Station, Woodbrook Police Station. Does our all points bulletin exist within the police service at all?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it has been scrapped. And this is where I mean, people criticize Christopher. I wish he had the strength and the courage to understand that there's obviously political pressure to shut down and remove everything that I put in place. And therein lies the problem. I mean, this is not the Long Circular Mall incident. It's not the first issue. I mean, we recall just a few months ago or several months ago, a man blew a man head out in Residence nightclub, which is opposite, which is like 10 meters from the commissioner's residence and 2 minutes from St. James Station. It took about 40 minutes for a police vehicle to arrive. And this is not the fault of the police officers. The system that we had on an operational command center monitoring the 17,000 cameras, and as soon as there was a 999 call or a distress call or police, or you press the SOS on the police app on your phones, immediately it would have triggered all of the 100 ERP vehicles, which has also been scrapped. So we had 10 emergency response vehicles in each of the divisions in Trinidad and Tobago, 9 or 10 divisions. I think they added another division since I left. So think of Western Division, for example. You have 10 vehicles working 24 hours a day. So you have 3 patrolling Pity Valley, 3 in Diego Martin, 3 in Carnage, and 1 in Cocorite. At any time you get a 999 call, it will guarantee that less than 5 minutes you will get a response. That is what we had before. In Arapita, we never had an incident in my 3 years because people complained and reported me for too many blue lights. Every 3 minutes, one of those 10 vehicles will be patrolling on a Friday and Saturday night. So the deterrent was there, the high visibility was there, the obvious rapid response would be there. So this situation in Long Circular Mall, as soon as you trigger the gunshot or SOS report, they would have seen the ERP vehicles in closest proximity. They call it the AOR, your area of responsibility. And then we have said vehicle number 17, 23, and 35. Look out for a black SUV now leaving Long Circular Mall heading east, because the operation center will be monitoring the cameras, but also monitoring the police vehicles in closest proximity for them to intercept. Now it has gone right back to the old-time policing, where all police vehicles will just be, they don't know what's happening, they don't get the information on time, and the person leaves, which is why these incidents have been taking place.
And then we had a shootout on the highway. I think it was the Churchill Roosevelt Highway. Also a couple of weeks ago, and then a stray bullet hit a innocent bystander, which is not the first time this has happened, where somebody innocently died because these clowns were running around the place shooting at each other. And I mentioned something when we were talking about that. Do we have a helicopter? Is a helicopter not a crime fighting tool?
Yeah, well, again, because of the failure by the government, last time during the period with the OPV, and when people come talk about the OPV and they wonder what that has to do with the helicopter, it works hand in hand. We were going to purchase 3 OPVs for $2.4 billion, and the cost of the OPVs really was 1.2, because I was getting that price for the OPVs from Israel, Colombia, and Korea. The same thing with the helicopters. We were getting these Augusta helicopters, and we were paying $1.4 billion for these 4 helicopters, but the actual cost for the helicopters would have been 83 million TT. So we put ourselves into a massive expense for hundreds of millions for maintenance. The cost of the maintenance of these helicopters probably more than an Emirates luxury liner, luxury airplane. And then after 4 years, Keith Rowley then realized that we were getting ripped off. So we have no helicopters. The Air Guard has 500 members in the Defense Force sitting down, twiddling their thumbs. They don't even have a paper plane. The police service, we use drones. So there's no aerial surveillance that we have whatsoever to assist us to deal with any natural man-made disaster, assisting us with traffic, dealing with traffic, assisting us in patrolling, in trying to move personnel in an immediate manner. So again, it shows a total failure of the government. They have totally collapsed in providing the assets, the tools, the policies for our law enforcement officials to perform. So there's absolutely no aviation asset that we have for law enforcement.
Lord Father. I saw as well last week in the paper that stakeholders, Carnival stakeholders, have all of a sudden, well, they're worried now. They have concerns because of the crime situation after a man was shot, chased and shot by the Queen's Park Savannah, putting up these vendor booths, right? Now, outside of you speaking about these state contracts that going out as the Spanish, they say you get a heart attack, and somebody raised the issue where he did an interview on 104.7, and he said he had built 4 toilets at 50,000 a toilet, and that kind of thing, getting contracts from the government, right? So we see a man get gunned down wrong the Savannah, and all of a sudden, all the stakeholders at Carnival have a problem. BPTT canceled some event they were going to do. And then we saw an article where the Carnival stakeholders sit down now to meet with the Minister of National Security, who has been the Minister of National Security all the time, coming off the back of 600 and something murders in 2022, and then 576 in 2023, and the same Commissioner of Police. And I'm saying to myself, but wait, you could have seen the situation in the country and where the murder rate was headed. Were you not concerned then? Is it logical to have a meeting 5 weeks before Carnival to vent your concerns about the crime situation? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the private sector have proven to be some that they will be very concerned, but they are afraid to say anything. I was bombarded with almost every different arms in the chambers being totally upset of the fact when it is a prime minister decided to turn the president's house into a post office, and then after get a president to handpick a new police service commissioner has proven to be the most incompetent ever by appointing someone who didn't come in the top 20 by UK experts a few years before. And no one said anything. Everyone stayed quiet. So you said nothing. And you know why? People want government contracts. So all of the business sector, you're concerned, you're worried that this is going to affect the nation, it's going to affect your business, but nobody wants to speak out. The only businessman that stood up was Peter George. Everyone stayed silent and bombarded and harassed and calling me constantly and being so upset. I say, you're so upset, but you're not saying anything because they want to get government contract. They don't want to be blacklisted by the government. Which is unfortunate. I mean, even this situation, so a man is shot and killed in the Savannah. All of a sudden, BP now is concerned. So you're not concerned. So BP don't have something called newspaper. So a company like BP, for the last few years, nobody could spend $3 a gift to those stakeholders who make the decisions in BP to understand that this has been ongoing for the last 3 years and continuing. You just saw one man killed to then realize that is your catalyst to trigger your main concern. I mean, it is unbelievable. So these people that hold these positions of authority, had I been Minister of National Security, I would have really put them in their place. And this is where people need to, if you had a Minister of National Security expressing facts, being very straightforward with persons who are our stakeholders internally and internationally. We have been honest to accept the fact that we are losing the battle, we are failing constantly, and it has to do with us, certain persons who are in authority, deliberately politicizing the situation. If you recall Carnival 2020, that was the last Carnival before COVID. It was the safest Carnival in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. There wasn't even a stabbing, there was not a shooting, not a wounding, no killing, nothing at all.
Yeah.
We locked down the country because of a comprehensive system using the National Operations Center, using we had 2 police officers at every single corner. People could not believe Trinidad and Tobago could have done that. I looked at the layout in Port of Spain, San Fernando Carnival. We looked at the streets where it is all of the parades will take place, and it was similar to New York City if you go to Labor Day Carnival in Brooklyn or Notting Hill. Every single corner. So as soon if you figure that you want to fight with somebody step on your toes, somebody whining with your girl, you figure, all right, 2 police officers on that corner, I'll go to the next corner. You will have to keep going right through the whole route, and you could not find a place where with every less than 50 meters you will see 2 police officers. That is a lockdown. This Carnival, we've gone right back to the old policing. There's no strategy, there's no concept, there's no policy to ensure a rapid response, there's no high visibility, which is why we were bombarded with stabbings, shootings, robberies, woundings, fights all over. And it has to do, again, but the people who are there to complain, they're afraid to say anything because they're afraid of losing business.
Wow. Now, I want to just bring something up here. Talking about people who are afraid of losing business, and people only speaking up when it affects them directly. I see here in the paper that the police are against ad hoc and any ad hoc policy on FUL renewals for service members. Now, for the longest while, you have been sort of the in the spotlight where FULs are concerned in terms of this investigation that they ran, and FUL holders on the whole have come in for a lot of scrutiny on.
Make it mandatory that everyone who has a firearm, we must make sure that we can check your finances, check and make sure if it is that there's been any matter with domestic concerns or whatever, that we can, or if it is that you are arrested for something, if you had DUI matters on several occasions, so that we will know where it is you need to keep your firearm. So that was the value of what I was doing. But that could only happen if you have the FUL card with the chip. What you go to this madness that Christopher is stating, telling 20,000 firearm holders, inclusive of everyone in the private security industry, with an FUEC, which is a Firearm Users Employee Certificate. Okay. You must reapply with a Form 1, go to get a new photograph, then go to get a certificate of character, then go to get a certificate of competence, and then give it to me for me to consider whether I will allow you to keep your weapon. It means that out of those 20,000, at least 15,000 will not get it on time before April 1st or whatever. And when you lose your firearm, then you will understand the game plan. And that is my concern. As it pertains to the members of the Defense Force and the police service, my take on it is if the police service has a regular system for making sure that persons use your firearm and they test it properly, then there's no need to do so. Like in the Defense Force, every single year, you must be tested on your weapon. You're stripping, you're assembling, firing your weapon, making sure you don't have a negligent discharge. So there may not be a need to reinvent the wheel for persons in the protective services if there's an annual stringent test. Right. But as I said, for firearm holders, it is important to make sure, but the system being used, going back to paperwork, with 20,000 persons reapplying who already have their firearms, it means that over half will not be able to get that approval. And maybe until then, they will be told, well, you have to keep your firearm now at the station. And then you will understand the type of madness going on because of political interference in the police service by directing them what to do because of their agenda.
Wow. I also want to get your thoughts on this probe that some police officers are asking for. The cops want the PSC to probe the Commissioner of Police Conduct over promotion exercise. Now, I read the article and I see that some of these promotions have been pending since 2009, and there has been a backlog. Now, you were Commissioner of Police in 2018, so why wasn't action brought against you? Although I did remember that you were handling promotions Because I remember one of the
my
first
watch,
things
it
I
was
did
the
was
first time, I think, ever that we filled all vacancies in the executive and then all vacancies in the first division. And then we started, it was a massive policy we had. Promotions were coming by the hundreds.
Right.
We call it by the hundreds on a regular basis. There was a proper system. We had external personnel to make sure that we had the proper system for the exams and the promotions. And that's why there were never any concerns, anybody suing anyone, because it was on track. They removed the civilians that were involved in it because remember McDonald Jacob, he said that you don't need civilians. But the same civilians that they fired, they have now put advertisements for reapplication for the same civilians. So it shows what a hypocrite McDonald Jacob is. So you remove the civilian organization and the team that was being used to ensure that we had this on track. You go back to use police officers to be involved, and that's where the ball has been dropped. And the police officers, quite rightly, would take the police to court, and guess who has to pay? Yet again, the taxpayers. But this is the person that the Police Service Commission appointed as the Commissioner of Police. And inclusive of that Police Service Commission is a speaking consultant and an accountant with no knowledge, training, or qualification in law enforcement. That is who the president appointed, who was appointed by the prime minister. So you know exactly what went on here. So this Police Service Commission, everybody's attacking poor Erla. If it is you appoint Gary Griffith to build a rocket ship and it fails, don't blame me. It's who appointed me for me to give me that authority. Erla Christopher didn't come, I think, in the top 20 in 2018. That's no fault of hers. She just does not have the ability. And 3 years later, she got 20% less than everyone else. The incompetent Police Service Commission that was handpicked by a president, that was handpicked by a prime minister, they selected her. And they are the ones who have caused the police service to be in the situation that they are in. But nobody is speaking about the Police Service Commission. But yet again, it shows when I speak about democratic dictatorship, every single time there's somebody who has a difference of opinion with a prime minister, they are targeted. Whether it is the DPP's office, whether it is Gary Griffith as the Commissioner of Police, whether it is Joala, whether it is the head of the Integrity Commission, whether it is the head of the Industrial Court, notice the pattern. That is what you call democratic dictatorship, when the government is now targeting anyone who they see as somebody who they cannot control and then utilize their influence to be able to go after the independent organizations who would appoint these people, and then all of a sudden these people immediately just start being sidelined.
Right.
Even that is democratic dictatorship, and we all stay silent and say nothing.
The other thing I wanna ask you about here, as we on that note, as you mentioned, the appointment of Ms. Haywood Christopher. Well, I think she comes in for a lot of criticism too, because twice she's called on divine intervention, rather than a strategic anti-crime plan. And I'm a believer in God. Everybody knows that. But, God helps those who help themselves, as I said, when she made the second call for divine intervention. But I see that you now in the paper, just in connection with that, with appointments, I see you going after Bliss Prasad. It's in an article here this morning, a headline, where Gary goes after Bliss, lawsuit filed over suspension after top cop merit list withdrawn. So you're going the full distance with this.
Yeah, definitely. And just going back to what you speak about, divine intervention could only take place by God helping those who help themselves. So, like, for example, you can't just sit down as a Man U supporter and ask for divine intervention. You have to continue to demand that Ten be removed. It's the same thing like Erla Christopher or Keith Rowley or Fitzgerald Hines. So it's sitting down and just hoping and praying that things will change. It doesn't happen that way. As it pertains to Bliss Prasad, it is straightforward. And the country will understand what I am doing is opening that Pandora's box to show the massive conspiracy that would have taken place. The minutes of the Police Service Commission would have shown that at no time was I suspended, that at no time did they request that the merit list be rescinded. So on what grounds would she rescind that merit list? Because the only way that merit list could have been rescinded would have been from the Police Service Commission. And at no time did the Police Service Commission rescind it. So she decided to do it, to take it upon herself. And you can't do that. As an independent commission, all decisions must be made by the commission. This is not a cabinet where the prime minister will just make a comment and everybody will bang the table and agree. No. An independent commission, it is based on majority. So there are 4 members of the commission. You must have 3 that will decide. If it's 2 for, 2 against, then the head will have the casting vote. In this situation, at no time did the 3 other members of the Police Service Commission request that I be suspended or request that the merit list be withdrawn. Additionally, we will also be showing and asking Blissy Prasad, show to the court on what grounds you decided to withdraw the merit list. Because Trinidad and Tobago, what I'm doing is this point, the court will show to the country the facts. Just like the audit report with Keith Rowley and that nonsense. Just like the Stanley John Jokey report, where he said it was a massive, well criminal industry and things were happening under people's nose. And after 2.5 years, nobody has been arrested. So the court is the one place that has not yet been controlled by the politicians. And the situation with Blissy Prasad, you withdrew the merit list based on what? Because a politician met you in President's house, used President's house as a post office and gave you a piece of paper. The paper had no value because the paper was a personal view by a civilian. He is as equal as one of 1.4 million. It was not an official report because there was a committee that was selected that I approved and the 2 persons did not sign it. So this is one man giving his personal view. And you take, as a head of a police service commission, take a citizen, give you his own personal view without any facts, any data, any evidence, none whatsoever, and use that as a reason to pull back a merit list that was already decided upon by the Police Service Commission. But Blissy Prasad, you have real questions to answer. See you in court.
And let me ask you something. I mean, I'm going to ask you something from on a personal level, you know. Just as the person that is Gary Griffith, right? I think everybody that knows you, we understand you're a patriot. You've always been. From the email gating, you're the first person to hand in your devices. I mean, you're always there. Even the little confrontation between, I think it was Ram Logan, David West, yourself, that whole bacchanal, right? You always stood your ground. I know you to be that kind of fellow. When that situation happened with the merit list, because I'm hearing a lot of noise now about people being concerned about the crime situation, people being concerned about the murder rate, all these big stakeholders and business people. But when that happened and that independent process was interfered with, I didn't hear them. I didn't hear that noise. I didn't hear the public coming out and saying, bring back Gary, we don't want nobody else but Gary. But everybody stay quiet. What happened, happened. And now we 1,200 murders down the road because we had 607 at the end of 2022. We had 576 at the end of 2023. Children have been shot and killed. Children. Men killing children now. A 13-year-old girl walked into a police station and said, yes, those are the people that raped me, and the next morning she was dead. Gunmen went to her house and shot her dead. A 13-year-old girl. Children. So now everybody have concerns and, oh gosh, the murder rate and this, that, and the other. But when that took place, I can't remember anybody yelling and screaming at the top of their voice, this is wrong, bring back Gary Griffith. We want Gary Griffith. What's your personal take on that? As Gary Griffith, the person.
Well, it is disappointing. Is that, I mean, I will stand firm. I will give up my job for a matter of principle. I will say and do what is right. I stood up against 2 governments based on certain things. Yeah. And that's who I am. And the country will understand me for that. I was bombarded during that situation with the merit list. I tell you, hundreds upon hundreds of businessmen. Boy, Gary, we're so upset, we're so offended. But only Peter George is the only person, and everyone stayed quiet until it now affects them. Because the same, every single person in the business sector now, you can't get your firearm. You might get your firearm seized now. You have to pay hundreds of thousands more annually or even monthly because of more security. Your family is now affected. So everybody who decided to remain quiet because they realize, okay, this is a Keith versus Gary. This is that is big fighting. I know where to put. I am saying nothing. No, look where by you saying nothing, look what has happened. So the time it is that you need to speak, however, will be the next general election. Because if it is you don't open your mouth or stain your finger in the right manner, it is going to happen for another 5 years. And I can tell you, what we are seeing now it is just a drop in the bucket because the criminals have become emboldened and people do not understand the dangers of an automatic weapon. I also have Fitzgerald Hines I'll be going to court with him as well because he also lied when he said that I allowed firearm holders to bring in assorted different parts to change their semi-automatic weapon to automatic. That is a criminal offense. He has now accused me of committing a crime, and he is a liar. Because the joker doesn't even know the difference with changing a barrel to changing a weapon from automatic to semi-automatic to automatic. And my point being is that when someone has an automatic weapon, you can fire 35 rounds in 3 seconds. If you decide to target one gang member and all of a sudden it's a party with about 30, 40 people around, you can end up with dozens of people killed in 3 seconds. That is how dangerous it is out there. And this government has done nothing to deal with illegal firearms. 99.9% of the 800 odd murders committed in the last 2 years by firearms have been by illegal firearms. And they have done nothing. They put nothing in place. And again, for those who will be coming to those the anti-crime talks today, you will see the policies and the recommendations we will make as it pertains to this situation. But I would ask people who are in the business sector, the private sector, citizens, understand that by you remaining silent because you want to keep your contract, you want to keep your state business, you're afraid of being victimized, you are being targeted. So everybody who keeps hoping that they can turn their back and close their door, it is affecting you now. So all of those who remain quiet for the last 2 years, I hope you understand that by everybody staying quiet, shoo, you have allowed the democratic dictatorship to expand to the point that now each and every citizen is being affected.
And on that note, with the talks that will take place, the opposition obviously has invited you to present at these anti-crime talks, town hall meeting. I think the first one is in La Jolla in St. Joseph later on this evening. Now, just for the public's knowledge, in terms of what they can expect by attending these talks, one, and two, whatever comes out of this, how is it going to benefit them?
Yeah, definitely. When I was Minister of National Security and Commissioner of Police, the one thing that allowed my measured success would have been interaction. Within my first 3 months, I visited every one of the 70 plus police stations. I'll be meeting with stakeholders. I sent correspondence to all 41 members of parliament, asking to meet with them and members of their constituency. That never happened before. And there's a reason for that. You need to get right down to the most junior police constable, to the man in the street. Hear their concerns, see what it is that is affecting them. Because this is not about Gary Griffith having all the knowledge to come up with anti-crime plans. That is not how you deal with trying to solve crime in a country. Every country will have different concerns. The only way you can understand the concerns is going right down to speak to the persons who you are supposed to serve. And that's what the PNM could never do. It reminded me of our local government election when I walked through Scorpion, School Street, West Moorings, Goodwood Park. Everywhere I went, not one person ever said that they saw Keith Rowley ever walk his constituency. He never has, because he figures that Diego Martin West is automatic. You don't need to. Colin Imbert boasted about it in 2015 when he said, I didn't have to walk because I know we'll win. That is the disregard, disdain that politicians have for people. As it pertains to national security, likewise, you need to be on the ground. You need to speak with stakeholders, hear their concerns, see exactly what it is that is affecting them, and you will get recommendations from them. And even though they are not experts, it allows you to understand and then take some of the recommendations, and it can be of value. So what is happening is it's twofold. It is to make sure there's proper interaction for persons who are on the ground to be able to explain the concerns of in that specific area, recommendations that they can make, questions that they can ask. Secondly, it allows us to be able to show to the country recommendations that can work. Early last year, I was the person when I went and I made the proposal to Keith Rowley. I am willing to help you because you have a clueless Minister of National Security. You have a commissioner who placed in the top 20, didn't come in the top 20 by UK experts. So I am here willing to help you. And if Keith Rowley had any sense of political experience, you'd have said, I will accept the proposal from Kamala and Gary to meet with them. And if it is they give good ideas and it works, I win because crime goes down. If it is that they work, they meet with me and it fails, I could blame them and then I'll say, well, you see, no need to change them. That would have shown somebody with political experience. But hate, anger, bitterness took precedence over that. So it is better that the country drowns in blood than be able to swallow your pride and do what is right for your country. This anti-crime talk is going to show that we have the capability, the political will to be able to go out there and meet with people. And we were willing to do that with the government. But the government has proven to be so bitter, so full of anger and hate. And it is going to show that we're prepared to work with the stakeholders, come up with proper plans, policies. There are going to be some big eye-openers I'm going to bring to the country to show how this can change. I'm not speaking about the 100+ policies that worked just 2 years ago that led to the highest reduction in violent crime in 17 years. I'm not speaking about all of those things. I've said it all. I'm going to speak about other type of policies that can ensure that immediately we can peg back gangs and criminal activity in this country. It's going to be an eye-opener. But these things, unfortunately, will either going to put pressure on the government, and if the government refuses to do those things, I give the assurance to the public that immediately when we get in government, I'll be able to implement this, and this country will be much safer.
Wow. And, we're going to go to the phone lines. 235-5325 is the number to call. So anybody, you have your concerns about crime. Every morning we're talking about it. You have the man himself here, who you've been calling for to bring back Gary. Everybody bawling, bring back Gary, bring back Gary. Gary Griffith was the best commissioner we had. All of you have the opportunity now to put your question to Gary Griffith. So,
hello, good morning.
Yeah, morning. Go ahead. What's your question?
I am calling from Esperanza Village, California, Trinidad. Mr. Gary is the oldest man in Trinidad and this world to solve the problems in Trinidad and Tobago. First, you must lock up Keith Rowley and you must lock up Fitzgerald Hyde, and then start all the rest of things. Lock them up, and then we're going to start. Mr. Gary, you have always support and make sure you come Central Trinidad.
All right, bud. That caller there from Esperanza, California, he said the first thing he had to do is lock up Keith Rowley and Fitzgerald Hyde.
Well, let me just say quickly. There's all about they have not broken the law, but what Fitzgerald Hyde has shown is Fitzgerald Hyde is a good politician, and people will be shocked to hear me say that because that is all he does. Fitzgerald Hyde is in the same category of the Juliet Davey and these people, the rabble rousers, who will bark and shout and attack and say the nastiest things about political opponents to the PNM. That is all he does. Look at recently. We are in a situation where police trust and confidence went from 59% when I left to 8%. The highest murder rate we've seen in the last 2 years. And instead of him trying to instill some degree of hope, you're attacking Paulo Kernahan. And I mean, that is not what you want of a Minister of National Security.
All right. Yeah, caller, go ahead. Morning.
I am a firearm holder the last 35 years, right? I've been through all the processes, right? Every year I go on the range at least 10 times. And this system that is being put in place by Ola is a monopoly she's trying to create. She's trying to remove her firearms from legal firearms owner in this country. She has been in the financial department of the police service. She doesn't know how to carry a firearm. Gary was a commissioner. He carries a firearm with him. I've never seen this police commissioner, Ola, carry a firearm on her side. This is incompetency that this country needs to realize we need to replace this commissioner.
Okay. No, Gary, she's on a 1 year. She was on a 1 year extension, right?
Yes, I think it'll end in March, and she's going to be used as a fall guy. They're going to remove her, blame her for crime, and give them a cushion to say the failures we've seen in the last year or so has been because of Ola Christopher. It's a typical PNM game plan. You can see it coming. So everything that she's trying to ramage in the hope that she can please politicians, it's not going to work. As the last caller said, the problem with that is that you're trying to remove people who have firearms and they've been entitled to it for the last few decades. It is wrong. You're going out of your way to remove persons who have firearms. The reason why I gave out 4,000 firearms was because the state was unable to ensure that we can protect you, and half of that was for law enforcement officials, 2,000 for past and previous members of the police, prisons, customs, immigration, army, coast guard. That is how, and so I was proud for me being able to do that. And not one was lost, not one was stolen, not one was used for a crime. And let me quickly ask Stefan, the system she's using is an element for corruption. The card was going to ensure that you must go to a range, you must fire 5 rounds. We will check your accuracy. Let us see you be able to clear your weapon, clean your weapon, and then you will get the certificate of compliance, of competence. If that is not done, what's going to happen is that people will go to anybody who's registered, pay them 500 or 1,000, you'll get a certificate and go, which will defeat the purpose of ensuring that the person is of sound body and mind to keep a firearm.
Okay. 235-5225. And yeah, if you're a FUL holder, don't be afraid now, you know, because I mean, it's on your doorstep. Feel free to ask your questions and see what you have to say. Morning.
Morning.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, well, Gary will have his issues, and when he was the Commissioner of Police or the Minister of National Security, he did a good job, and there's always room for improvement. But I like to deal with the issues. On this program here, we have been saying over and over, it's a governance program. As far as Fitzgerald Hines is concerned, empty vessels makes the most noise. But your father was a pest control man. I have a piece of land here with a set of vegetables and a plant, but I have batcha coming in from about 10 different pots. And every time I go to the agro shop, they say, put thing here, put thing there, put all thing all about the place.
Malatian
Yeah,
powder. Get Malatian powder.
So I put a whole bunch of things, but the batch still coming back. So I talked to my neighbor. And my neighbor said the nest coming from a piece of empty land by the neighbor in the back there. So I went and gave permission.
Right.
And I went by the nest and I deal with the batch and the batch them dead. So the issue here now is I want to ask Mr. Griffith, if you don't think that going after the criminals where they live and where they exist and remove them instead will not solve the crime problem. Because talking about this thing and that thing and putting this and that and trial and guns coming in all about the place and all kind of crime talk makes no sense unless you remove the criminals out of the society. So the issue for me now is that whether you feel that is the solution, and all the issues where you went away and find these things of international crime and modernizing and all kind of thing, all these things are good. But if the criminal is not removed from there, then the guns and things will still be used because it takes a criminal to use a gun.
All right.
Have a good day.
You'll get a response from Mr. Griffith. Hold. Give him an opportunity to respond, and then you'll patch the next caller.
Unfortunately, the call dropped tremendously.
Okay.
I heard what he said.
What he was asking, he's asking if it doesn't make sense removing the criminal elements, as in going to their house and removing them then, because you know where they live in. In other words, we had police officers and things come out and say that, you know, we know all who in crime, we know all who the bad boys are, but I think he's asking if it doesn't make sense removing them completely.
Yeah, but also if come this afternoon at 6 p.m., I'm going to mention something. The country, we are past the stage of being involved in policing. The nation we are under siege. This is armed conflict, if not virtual war. More people are killed in Trinidad and Tobago than in some countries that actually have open armed conflict. We are at virtual war. So this has reached a point where the police no longer have the training and the experience to handle this. I was able to handle it because of my training as a military officer. So when 150 people were coming down into Port of Spain, I was able to, had it been an earlier Christopher, Port of Spain would have been destroyed. I had to use a lot of tactics and strategy to prevent Port of Spain from being destroyed. But there's no longer somebody with military training to fight this war, to fight this battle. When they had the 30th consecutive blocking of the road and to try to shut down the country, there was somebody with military training. So we are past the stage of the police being able to handle it, which is why in 1990, when the police stations all went empty, because police, their job is not to be involved in open armed conflict like this. Their job is not to be involved in war. We have hundreds of persons out there, as I said, with firearms that can kill 35 persons in 3 seconds. This is where you'll be hearing my comments today as to how to deal with it, and also how the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force can be utilized to deal with this war.
Okay. 235-5325. We're going again. 20 minutes past the hour, 7 o'clock. Yeah, Director, you could go ahead and push through the next call. Hello, morning.
Good morning, Stefan. Mr. Griffith, good morning. Trinidad and Tobago, good morning. Mr. Griffith, I want to ask you something. Mr. Griffith, we have 3 departments that control Trinidad and Tobago, which is the Police Service, the Army, and the Coast Guard. Do you think if you get those 3 departments going as how we're supposed to fix it, because it right now I have to use the word rotten. Fix it. Do you think that if you fix these three departments, the police service, the army, and the Coast Guard, do you think that this country will be where it's supposed to be? And if you forget that this is a good idea, I have ideas how to get it done. Have a nice day, Mr.
Okay.
Well, so all you need to do is to come down this afternoon, and you hit the nail on the head. You're quite right. And that's how I was able to transform the police service. Public trust and confidence was 14%. It moved to 59%. It has gone back down to 8%, which is where we have gone right back to police officers shouting and buffing people to come to the station, taking their phone, knocking out their phones from them. How come that didn't happen in 2018 to 2021? Monkey Door Tree to climb. They knew that there would have been immediate suspension. Now we've gone back to investigation, which is an excuse to keep the officer on duty and get them full pay without anything taking place, and hope that in a couple of years nothing happens. So I give you the assurance it can happen and it would happen. Just turn up at La Jolla this afternoon and I'll be able to explain how it can be done and how it would be done.
I just want to slip in something here. As you mentioned that, how come these things weren't happening when you were there and now it's happening? Somebody raised the issue the other day saying, but we have fellas going on IG, doing videos, boasting about man, right? There was a guy who was shot, I think not by the towers here, St. Paul Street. Right on the back in St. Paul Street here. Yeah. And some fellas went online saying brains scatter, brains all over the place.
Yeah.
Right. In your time, I remember fellas boasting and bragging on social media, and within 24 hours, they were apologizing on social media in the police station. Well, I want to just apologize to the commissioner of police guy, Griffith, for the video that I put out and this, that, and the other. How come in your time, you all could have get to these guys, and now these fellas putting all these videos and they're doing it freely?
You see, people saw it as fun a few moments later. But it wasn't fun. It was the type of technology that I used, and it caused criminals to realize, wait a minute, what it is that they're using. I work with the NYPD. We formed the social media monitoring unit, which NYPD has at one police plaza. If people watch Blue Bloods, you keep seeing this one police plaza. I went there on several occasions. I piggybacked and saw what NYPD did. There's something called a social media monitoring unit. We formed the same thing. We were able to get information to prevent a crime from taking place or to solve a crime. It was known as predictive policing. And because of that, that has also put an end to kidnapping. It is the only time in Trinidad and Tobago's history that when someone kidnapped a victim, we will kick down the door, raid the house, intercept the car, arrest the perpetrator, the kidnapper, and release the victim. That has never been done before after 2018 and 2021. What you get is the police we're back to the old time days, sit back, wait for the family to pay the ransom and say, we've solved the case, the victim has been released. That is not solving it. We have failed because the kidnapper has now won. What we were doing was arresting the kidnappers. So we put an end to kidnapping because of the technology that we were using. The government and the present hierarchy of the police shut down this market, which is why kidnapping has returned. So to the PNM supporters, well done. The things with home invasion, when people jumped over your wall, by the time you jump back over, as happened in Maraval and other places, immediately will either arrest you or you will end up in a body bag. Because as soon as you come over, we're waiting on you. Because we had a proper 999 system, an operational command center, a commissioner's command center. We had GPS tracking on the police vehicles to intercept using the technology. Home invasions had stopped, but home invasions have now returned because they shut down and dismantled what I had because I'm Gary Griffith. Well done, PNM supporters. So if it is that we want to continue to play politics, see how this is going to, if it's going to make it better for your wife not to be kidnapped, for your son not to be killed, for your daughter not to be raped. But you know what? I'm voting PNM till the end. That is why, thankfully, 190,000 voted against that. And 130,000 who you obviously have no concern about your family's concern. You keep voting for PNM. Thankfully, 60,000 more votes showed what is going to happen in the general election.
Okay. We'll squeeze one more, 235-5325. I could squeeze one more. Because we're about 25 past here. We could do one more phone call. So let's see what happens here. Patrick, I'm director. Yeah, morning.
Good morning, Stefan, and Happy New Year to you.
Morning, dear. Happy New Year to you as well.
Mr. Stefan, what I would like to tell guys is that he has been a good person. He has been working very well, but always remember, what I have to say here this morning. If the cup of tea is yours and they try to take it away, it will always be yours. We will always love Gary. And tell Mr. Gary, I personally send love and greetings to him, and don't worry, what is for you is you. God bless you, and he will continue to bless him. And if God take away this from him, he have better for him. Stephen, you know that too.
Yeah. All right, thanks a lot.
Yeah, tell Gary I say a good day and love him.
All right, no problem, sweetheart.
Love you too.
We'll take one more. She called to express her love for Gary Griffith. All right. Morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hey, morning, man. What's the question? Go ahead. You're the final caller, so make it a good one.
I want to ask my former colleague and former commissioner of police, what really causes bad blood to occur between he and the Prime Minister in such a quick time? I am saying that because he was a colorful commissioner. You love, I saw Carnival Day, the kind of work he was doing. Crime was at a low. What really, I want to ask him, but I never met him. You know me, you know Billy P. I never get the opportunity to ask him that. What caused that bad blood? I want to know that this morning. Thank you, sir.
Well, I think the whole country might want to know that question as well. So good question to end with. Go ahead.
Let me clarify quickly. The perception about when Keith Rowley and I had the fallout during COVID, that is not true. Keith Rowley, again, because of bad briefing by his legal personnel, the then Minister of National Security, Stuart Young, didn't brief him. His Attorney General, Faris Alwari, didn't brief him. Other attorneys. He thought that the COVID regulations, with the public health regulations, allow the police to go into homes and arrest people if it is that they had more than 10 persons. He was totally ignorant of the law. I had to explain to him, you cannot go into a private place to arrest people, because if I had done that based on his pressure, I would have been arresting Stefan if he brought in nine of his friends for Mother's Day lunch. There's something called public health regulations, and we did not have that authority. Had I operated in any other manner, I would have operated like the police commissioner in 2011 that decided to just arrest 500 young men because of how they looked and profiled them, and the taxpayers had to pay. So I did the right thing. I stood firm, and I was not going to arrest persons because of political pressure. Keith Rowley was offended because I exposed his ignorance in not understanding the law that he drafted. But then that, if you recall, we went to Carnival police station. That was over and done with. We had a good rapport. We'll speak 3-4 times a day. I will be communicating with him more than anyone else. He would be defending me in town hall meetings when people try to speak ill about me if I spoke about one shot, one kill. What happened after is when it is that poll started coming up that had Gary Griffith with 89% national support, and he had 40-odd%. Certain persons started whispering to him in his government, started saying Gary Griffith is going to be a political threat. He has 2 times more support than you in all the polls. This can't be right. They then had the concern that, again, so they started pushing a narrative that Gary Griffith is going to affect them politically. Then there was the concern that when it is I was being pressured to give him $40 million, hire persons to target political opponents to have them arrested. I'm not cut like that. So if it is that certain persons in the PNM figured that by appointing me, you figured that I owed you something and I was going to arrest people without evidence, without witnesses, without due process, I am not cut like that. And that obviously offended them. So they figured that they wanted a puppet commissioner to do their bidding. And I am not like that. So that became the concern. He just became more bitter because he could not control me. He could not direct me. There were certain investigations like AV drilling. When I said it is not closed, that obviously could have also offended him. So Keith Rowley, it seems that he always wants somebody that he must have full control over, whether it is head of the Integrity Commission, whether it is the Industrial Court, whether it is the Commissioner of Police, whether it is Central Bank. Notice the pattern. And that is where I fell. I hope that he would have been mature enough to understand that two heavyweights in a ring getting on like that, the country is suffering, which is why I threw the olive branch and I said, let us forget this and just deal with trying to save Trinidad and Tobago. He is not interested. So what I am going to do is save Trinidad and Tobago by removing Keith Rowley democratically.
Wow. All right. Well, Gary, I want to thank you for your time this morning. And, once again, we're going to chat again soon, but we could only hope that things get better and hopefully people come out in their numbers at St. Joseph. It's La Jolla, right? In St. Joseph?
Yes, correct.
La Jolla, St. Joseph tonight. What time?
6 p.m.
from 6 p.m. and they're taking these discussions that will take place. I wish you the best of luck later on. So have a good one, man.
You too.
Thanks a lot.